Everybody, you're watching the Mike Nelson Show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe right now. I want to thank everybody who's already subscribed. Today, I got a very special guest. I got Sound Curfew. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Feeling great. Yeah.
All right, if you could give your name and your instrument, that way our listeners on the radio can know who they're listening to.
Okay. So I'm Dominic. I play lead guitar and I'm the lead vocalist.
Yeah. My name's Gus, and um, I play drums, and I'm 26.
And my name's Darby, they, them, and I play bass and backups.
So when did the band start out? What's the history behind the band?
Yeah. So Darby and I were going to Portsville High School together. I am a little younger, so it was my freshman year. It was Darby's senior year. And then I ended up in the jazz band, even though I didn't really know how to read music. But the music instructor at the time, I was in the marching band as well. And he was like, you're playing guitar pretty well. Like, you should come check out the jazz band, see if you like it. So kind of on a whim, I joined, and Darby was playing bass in there, and we kind of hit it off and ended up starting to jam. And then the jams became like open mic performances, and then those evolved into looking for a drummer. And then sooner than later, we ended up forming a band. Initially, we were called Adversarial. Then we were called By Proxy, and then we settled on Sound Curfew because nobody else had Sound Curfew. So
Yeah, there's no deep meaning behind that other than we just wanted something that was our own. And in the internet age, it's really hard to find something unique. Like everything's been taken, even if it's just by like some guy in like India who's like running like some kind of bot that just like takes all the band names or what have you. But that one was free everywhere. And we felt like we all have this like very different and eclectic music taste where like we wanted a name that kind of felt almost I'm a big on the Gorillas. Like that was like my favorite band as a kid, and I always loved how they could bounce between genres. And I think to an extent we like to do that as well. Like we don't want to be bound by like a hard rock sound, even if that's like what we gravitate towards. And we felt Sound Curfew was a really good name because it could be all encompassing to all of our influences.
Now, you guys have formed up in the Antelope Valley. How was the scene back then? Or how was it like, starting a band up there in that area?
so there's always been, as far as I'm aware, like a pretty consistent music scene in the Antelope Valley, but it does tend to go through like genre eras. I think when we started to go to shows and started to make our own music, that was around 2017. And specifically around then, I think there was a lot of shoegaze
Like
going
surf.
on. Yeah, like surf, kind of like surf rock. A lot of the bands, I don't know, I think we're very inspired by like Mac DeMarco and
Yeah.
Fiddler, like those kinds of bands. But there also is like there's always been this hardcore part of it as well. Like that's just like really, I don't know, like kind of crust punk, I would say. Like it's like that kind of
Yeah, there's
grimy.
like hardcore, there's a really good hardcore scene out here. And I think that's kind of something that I've noticed about the AV scene is it can be very segmented. And I think every scene is, but like especially since we like play around with genre, we found it's like we love the scene out here, but we think we branch out a lot more than we used to because it's hard to find a place in like communities that are like really like maybe focused on one type of genre and when we're playing around with like multiple different genres in the middle of one set.
So on your link tree, I saw you guys have an article from the AV Press, an article about the band, an interview you guys did. So Sound Curfew played your last show with former drummer Chris Cameron, and Gus was in attendance. Can you tell me the story behind that and how Gus joined the band?
Yeah.
and how that
It was
all played
it was
out?
a backyard show. It was a backyard show in Lancaster. It was absolutely freezing cold. It's a kind of one of those things where you wear 3 jackets,
Yeah.
you're still cold.
Yep. I know how it is up there, man. I used to do
Yeah.
parades up in the Antelope Valley during December, and sometimes it was like 33, 34 degrees. So I know how that cold is.
Yeah.
It can get cold.
It was a fun show though. It was like that just kind of DIY house show where it's like we're playing like 30 minutes late because like everybody's just kind of vibing. And like funny enough, like the irony of the Sound Curfew name really came into play that night because we ended up having the Sound Curfew called on us.
Wow.
And it was Chris's last show. Felt like very poetic at the time.
Yeah. I showed up there because like I had some intentions of like joining the band because I heard like on social media that their drummer was going to be leaving, and I had seen Sound Curfew before, a couple different shows throughout, the years, playing in other adjacent like jam bands. And every time I see Sound Curfew play, I was like, oh, there's still a rock band in the Antelope Valley,
Yeah.
and rock music is like what I want to play. And so when I saw that there was an opportunity for a drummer to be in the band, this instrument that I play, I was like, okay, let's go for this. Let's try this out. Late 2019, early 2020. I had just joined. We were starting to like write music and stuff together.
Well, that's like
Yeah.
the funny thing too is like even before that, I knew Gus because like we had classes together at Quartz Hill. Like I first met him in my psychology class when Gus was like just leaving. He was like a year ahead of me. And like we met again later through our friend Jake Schwartz, who had a like Grateful Dead like cover band. It like did covers, some originals, but it was like very influenced by the Grateful Dead. And like Gus and I would like
Fill
in all the time. It's like we'd never would like speak outside of that, but then suddenly we'd have these shows where it's like we're playing for like an hour and a half, just these like 8-minute songs that feel like they're going on forever, and we're just struggling to keep it interesting and lock in, having never played with each other before.
Yeah. Never played with, like, no rehearsal, no practice, nothing. We just jump on the stage and try something out. It worked.
And it was cool, because we had crossed paths. So like, we had seen Gus quite a few times. Like I wasn't as close with him or like as familiar with him at the time, but I remember being really flattered that he came out to the show that night.
Yeah.
And I think very soon after that, we ended up talking about, because we actually held like a couple of auditions with different like kind of AV based drummers to fill in for like, the new slot. And Gus was one of those. And I remember my favorite story to tell about that is it went so well, at least from my point of view, that I was like, that night, I was like, you're in. We'll see you next time. See you next week. Like, it didn't even like, I probably should have consulted Darby on that initially. But it was just like, I was fully convinced. Like,
well, Darby already knew me.
Yeah.
So.
And like,
but you were just you wanted to like talk and like totally fair. You wanted to like really think it over.
I wanted to think it over
Yeah.
more, but it's worked out since then. Like, definitely, we only ended up like, when we say like, oh, we were shopping around all these different drummers, we mean 2,
Well,
including
auditions.
Gus.
That's plural.
So it felt like really quick for me. I was like, what the fuck? Like we just met this guy like in this context, and like we're already saying yes, but it's really worked out because like I've always known Gus as someone like, and something that like I noticed definitely in that like first audition is Gus is a very creative person, and like he has similar influences where like even though it was like very different to the style of playing that we were used to, like Chris was a very fast-paced like pop punk drummer, and Gus is like he just hits hard, and it's like this like very like lumbering style of playing where it's just like it's really fucking heavy.
Caveman drumming.
Yeah.
Caveman drumming, sure.
I started calling him the enforcer.
But like he like even before that, I've been trying for like a couple years to flag him down to create album art because I've always loved his like his drawings outside of like his music already. And now that we have him, it's like really cool having a resident artist in the band, even though we've learned that it takes time. And, you know, we try not to overwork Gus, but he enjoys it, I think. I hope.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
dude's been a real asset in
Yeah.
some.
So
Yeah.
tell me about the genre of the band on your Instagram. I noticed you guys have psych grunge, cowboy funk. How did you come to that cowboy funk term? Tell me about that.
A bit of a joke, admittedly, but there are full-heartedly some of our songs that like I at least anytime I hear them, I imagine just cowboys riding in the sunset.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I think we can't help it. Like there's kind of that like desert rural kind of vibe, especially in some of those like drop D songs. Like I think of like In Circles, or we have a song called Gunslinger. And that title alone definitely evokes like those like spaghetti westerns, like what's that one?
Like
Uh
Clint Eastwood shit.
yeah,
Like
but also
Fistful of
Chain.
Dollars.
What about Chain? You ever seen that one?
No,
That's probably my favorite western.
Yeah, Shane's a good
Yeah,
western.
you know that one? Yeah,
I don't know that one.
it's good.
Yeah, I don't know
But,
westerns too much.
no
Me
worries.
neither. I like you said, like just growing up out here, you kind of get it like just from the culture. Because like a lot of the people who grew up in the AV and like are like born and raised, just it almost feels like the like deep south of California. And just like it feels just very rural. You get a lot of like, even though it's definitely not that now, like it's so far removed from that, but like you hear the stories of it, like the AV just 60 years ago, and it's like a completely different vibe.
Yeah, alfalfa farming and cattle ranching.
There was a moment because like as I said, like we like really try to transgress genre where we like really struggled to figure out what to call it. So we like cowboy funk was definitely a joke. There was a while we were calling it bastard jazz because of our like jazz band roots. And our inability to play jazz. But I think psych grunge, we just started calling it that because hard rock doesn't feel right either. Because like there's that element, but like I think there's just a lot of that like 90s grunge and punk influence to a lot of stuff, but we have like tons of effects going on too. So I feel like the average Sound Curfew song could fall under that label, even if we have other ones that are way more like recently we released Of Self of Death, which to me like has always read more as like an emo track than it does like anything we've ever done before.
So what sort of like bands or musicians you think influence Sound Curfew, from the three of you?
So like for me, I definitely like I love just weirdo music. Like, and I think like growing up in the AV, you gotta respect Zappa and you gotta respect Captain Beefheart because like they went to high school out here together. Zappa even has like a song about like the AV, although I can't remember what it's about. It's something about like turkey farmers. And like there's like a like Captain Beefheart off Safe as Milk, like the opening line is I was born in the desert. There's just that like desert thing that just like encapsulates all of his music. And I love Primus as like a bass player. Like, although like I'm not always playing things that are that complex, I do think like Claypool, where I'm trying to like almost play like lead rhythm guitar at the same time as playing bass and really think about how I can fill the space as a bass player rather than just kind of, finding roots and grooves. And, sometimes I like dial it back for the song, but that's like where my heart's at. And then also just, I think what's made me, in a way, like Modest Mouse has given me a deep appreciation too of just trying to like take influence from what's around me because they're this band that's like just really rhythmic. So like musically, I love it, but so many of their songs are very specific to where they started in Issaquah, Washington, and being like the satellite city to Seattle. So they got like all the perks of being in the Seattle scene, but without actually living in Seattle. And they just like saw this big city overtaking uh, their area and like the suburbia and the malls like that were popping up. And I think that's something that like being from Palmdale, like we can just really relate to and has found its way in like a lot of these new songs we're writing too. It's that expansion of LA where it's like people get pushed out of LA and then in Santa Clarita, and then all the people in Santa Clarita that can't afford that anymore get pushed out to Palmdale until we just like Palmdale's been like developing like crazy because of it. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I think it's also like a tragic thing in many ways too. But yeah, I think those are like my big four that I can think of off the top of my head.
You guys.
Yeah, for me, for my drumming at least, what I want to hear in my drums definitely be like Queens of the Stone Age, Nine Inch Nails, Nirvana, and Failure, big 90s bands. And then like, Kelly Scott from Failure, Dave Grohl from Nirvana, Foo Fighters. And also just the drum sounds of, of Queens of the Stone Age, just the heavy, beefy, cayuse, grunge sound is really something that I'm attracted to a lot. Compositions by like Nine Inch Nails and stuff too. I like a lot as well. Just those really heavy, like mid-range guitars also is what I gravitate a lot towards.
Yeah. And I think for me, instrumentally, so I got really into Rage Against the Machine in high school. But Muse was kind of my gateway drug into Rage because I kind of looked into like their origin and they were very inspired in the late 90s by what Rage was doing. So I think probably most explicitly my guitar playing is very influenced by like Matthew Bellamy and Tom Morello. But then I also would say as a singer, I'm very inspired by like Tom York's like melodic range, like in Radiohead and like his solo projects. And also I love Bjork. I got really into Bjork the past couple of years. And mostly for her lyricism, like she's like she really paints a picture with the lyrics and really puts you somewhere. So she's been a big influence too. And then also like a lot of the kind of like R&B scene from that era too. Like I love Erykah Badu. And just kind of, I don't know, those artists and their relationship with melody and like melody put to rhythm, a lot of syncopation going on. A lot of stops and starts and just like they really play the space, which is something I love to do. So those are probably my biggest influences for this band for sure.
So how's the recording music been for the band? Being in the studio, where do you guys record at? These singles that you guys done in the last couple of years.
Few different places. The earliest stuff that you can find would be Malleable Minds, and that we recorded all four of those songs in Green Valley.
At Valley Crest Recording Studio. It's a buddy of ours who has like a entire studio that he built. It's like his own just shack, and it's just gorgeous.
It's really great.
Like you go inside and you're just isolated from everything. You don't even have cell signal out here. So it's like really great space to really just focus on the music.
Yeah. His name is Diego Hodge, by the way. And any Antelope Valley bands listening, if you want somebody affordable and talented, he's a great guy to go to. Can't recommend him enough.
Even if you're not in the AV, just make the drive. It's worth it.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's great to work with. And then we also did a single with him And then after that, it was COVID era, and we did our own self-produced demo for a song called Oneliness. And we put that out. That was recorded between our like houses and whatnot, and Gus ended up mixing it, and we had somebody in the Trackworks in San Francisco master that one. And then we put out a studio version of Oneliness that Diego also recorded. And then also our latest single, Of Self of Death, we did with him as well. So the majority of the stuff out right now is with Diego. And then, I mean, guys, do you want to speak to the Alex singles?
So we have there's another guy that we had record 2 singles for us it was for Toxic Womb and for in circles, and had those down in like LA. So
Santa Monica house studio.
We've done like a bunch of different producers, and like there's even like when you guys did your guys' EP before I joined the band, you worked with a completely different producer then.
Yeah.
Too. And so like we've been shopping around,
Diego is ultimately the guy that I think more often than not we go back to, but there's we have this one that we worked on that should be dropping soon, where we went to another guy, and it's always like a learning curve with a different producer, because it just changes the entire environment and the entire process. So like this new single was definitely like had a steep learning curve for us, but I think like we probably would go back to him again, because like the sound is there, and we definitely want to explore more what we can do with him. And right now we're talking about we're in the process of an album, and we're going to someone else entirely.
Was that Pale Moon?
Why can't I remember?
We're gonna be recording in Little Rock, our debut album.
Wow.
I do want to know, probably by the time this comes out, our next single will be out, so I may as well just drop that. It's called
Comes out on the 21st, right?
Yeah, it's called False Divide.
Yeah, this will be out before, so.
Oh, great. Okay, well, that's coming up then. It'll be out everywhere that you listen to music online. And that song we did with Justin Melkor, who's based in Quartzville, California, which is also in the AV. And yeah, he's got a great home studio, super nice guy, talented dude. So we're looking forward to that one as well.
So you guys are gonna be going to Little Rock, Arkansas to do that album? Your first record?
Oh, no.
Oh, I thought
there's a Little Rock in SoCal.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's gonna be with Alex Estrada at the Pale Moon Ranch.
Okay.
Juniper Hills area.
Yeah. It's really exciting for us because it's their first time doing an entire album. And as far as like producers go, he's worked with like Joyce Manor and some pretty bigger acts. So it's really exciting. It's going to be a really good opportunity, and I think we're going to get some really great material from it. Like we've just been doing nothing but writing for the past like 2-3 months in preparation and trying to get like the best possible music we can, just like really pushing ourselves in terms of like music theory and our like our writing process itself, and trying to push like how quickly we can write songs, how like I don't know, just how we talk to each other when we write songs, like the entire process. We've been injecting it with
like that's what we're going to be
jet fuel.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today and tomorrow. After this interview is practicing, rehearsing, and writing in order to be ready for our tracking in May.
So talking about one of your songs, Canyon. I really like that song. How did that song come about?
Oh, well, that's a deep cut. I wouldn't have expected a question about that.
It's a good one, though.
Was weed induced. 100%. We wrote that one in an afternoon with our old drummer, Chris, where we just smoked way too much, and we just started playing 2 chords over and over again because Dom got this new pedal called the Canyon. And we just jammed out that entire thing, and we've been sitting on it forever. It like just was one of those ones where like we kept trying to overthink it in the studio, but we felt like it paired so well with Oneliness. We just put it out together as a way to like honor it because we used to open like every show with that song.
Yeah, a lot of the shows in 2019, Canyon was like a big part of those sets. And yeah, it's a fun one. It's very I think that's a good example of the kind of more open-ended lyricism that I've gotten interested in. Because it's just more about the imagery. It's about, I mean, I always kind of like when I listen to it, I imagine there's a line in the chorus. It goes, infinite transitions, my plateau becomes a canyon. And I just imagine brain folds, weirdly enough, because actually it's really interesting. Part of why our brain has so many folds, like the human brain, is because we have so many neurons. So the more folds, the more surface area you can have neurons, and it's just the more you can think basically. So for instance, an example of like a plateaued brain with no folds would be what are they called?
Smooth brain.
Smooth.
You know what I'm thinking of? Koala bear. Koala bears. They have smooth brains. So you can kind of imagine like a koala bear gaining intelligence,
Gaining
self-awareness when you listen to Canyon.
This is the first
It's all
time I've
about
ever
those.
heard this, and this is gonna change that song for me forever.
It's all about those. It's all about those
Like-
fold gains.
Like for me,
Fold
I've
gains.
always like again that credit to that open-ended lyricism. I never really like stopped and really thought about it all that much because I'm just like that song's fun because like every time we play it, it's different. Since it's two chords, I can really just kind of shred on bass. And that one was really fun to record for that reason. Like I get like a really fun bass solo at the end, which like just kind of came out of me in studio. And like I'd never like recorded a bass solo before that point. So yeah, a lot of good memories with that one. I'm glad that you like that one because
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to also say I think because that song's the B-side to the studio version of Oneliness, and I think it's a great A-B pair because you can really tell the difference in drumming style and how that makes a difference in the songs because Oneliness is a lot more open-ended, but it's also got a lot of force. Like I think it's a great example of Gus's just like I mean, we just boom bop, right? Because that's what we call it.
Boom bap. Boom bap.
Yeah, boom bap. Like it's just really heavy, but you feel it the entire time. You can't miss the drums. And whereas I think Canyon's got a lot more movement and like speed to it, so it's more brisk. And it's just cool to compare. They're two different people with two different ways of exploring the drum set. So
yeah.
it's cool for that reason too.
So how's it been playing live for the band? How have live shows been? You guys enjoy playing live?
I prefer it honestly because it's just fun to kind of be like stupid in front of a crowd. Like since I'm not tethered to a microphone, I've always made it my role to just be as ridiculous as and like eye grabbing as possible. And it's like to the point where I have like now dance moves for certain songs that I'll just bust out. Like our sets have become a lot more just like lighthearted as a result. Like the songs, we'll talk about like heavy themes, but like in between songs, like we've gotten a lot more comfortable. Just like
hello, everybody.
yeah, just being really fucking dorky. Because like it's not that serious, and like I think at the end of the day, we want people thinking about these like intense issues, but we also know that people are trying to go out and have a good time. And I think my favorite shows are like, it's not even like the pack shows that are the most fun. Like the Whiskey was a really cool show, but like there was some like technical difficulties that were frustrating.
Yeah, Gus got a drum solo, remember?
Yeah, yeah.
Got a few.
We're waiting for an amp to turn back on.
And like,
Come back to life.
but like some of my favorite shows are it's like these really nice venues where we just have 15 people who are really just in the music with us. Like I think at the end of the day, it's like I want something like my goal with a lot of our music is like I want something artistic and that's bold, but I also want to make sure people can move to it because when we play live and I see people moving, it really just creates a new experience for me where I'm like feeding off the crowd
Yeah.
and like
It gives you that confirmation too that
Yeah.
that it works.
and
Well,
so like even if it's like we're playing something heavy and like people aren't moshing, I don't care as long as they're dancing. Or like at least I see like some head bobs or something. Like I just want people to have fun.
Yeah, and also I I love just the ability to bring people together. Like when it works, it does really work, like Darby was saying. And it's just a tremendous feeling. Like people get really excited. There's moments, there's like a lot of like exciting moments in the music. We've gotten better, I think, at adding those and like having like these really dramatic, dynamic shifts and like changes. And I don't know, it's always so rewarding when you see that like the spell is taking, like you're doing what you're intending to do.
well, the more you do it, the better you get at it. The more you play live, the more comfortable
Yeah.
you're gonna be. I know.
Like one of my favorite moments from like a transplants show we did, shout out transplants, best venue in the AV. But we have this like new song we've been doing where it opens and it's just kind of like slap bass and drums and some kind of like sultry vocals. But when Dom finally comes in with guitar, like there was someone who like cheered in the audience because it like created this moment like where we're really trying to make that happen where it's like where it feels good when he finally comes in and like that restraint and that dynamics that we've been practicing. So to hear someone like kind of respond to it is always nice. And those are the moments that stick with us, even if it's not like a great show in terms of like turnout. As long as like I see someone just fucking with the vision, that makes it worth it.
Yeah.
Now, if each band member could talk about why they picked up their instrument, go through each one.
Go ahead, guys. Sister.
All right. Well, I've been playing drums since I was like 4 or 5. 5 is when I actually got like my first little Costco kit from Costco wholesale.
The Kirkland brand.
Drum
kit.
set.
Kirkland band.
I beat that thing to a pulp, smashed it. It was eventually retired when I finally got like a Pearl kit when I was like 9, 10 years old. I picked up drums because it was so much more easy of an instrument for me to visualize sonically. That like, when I would see like Keith Moon from The Who or Dave Grohl, or drummer from Cream doing a drum
Ginger
solo.
Baker.
Ginger Baker.
Rest in peace,
Playing drums, it was so effective at being music. It's so tribal and again effective because it's the original music of Homo sapiens is drums.
Great point.
Basically,
and when you listen to a recording, I mean, sometimes you got to slow it down. Sometimes you got to isolate drums and try and figure out a complicated fill or whatever. But for the most part, on average, you can listen to a song and you can tell what's being played. So then it makes it much easier to learn. Whereas with instruments with notation and chords like guitar, wind instruments, I tried playing all these different kinds of like string instruments and horns and stuff. And I was like, I ain't good at this.
you want to learn scales and all that, right?
I gotta read. What?
Learn your circle of fifths and all that.
Yeah, but like reading like some basic like drum sheet music for like snare drum in like the 5th grade like elementary school band, I was like, oh, it's dot 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 dot, like, and that's when you hit the snare drum. It's like, okay, I get it. And I liked kind of being, because like the drummer is the spine of the entire band. And like Buddy Rich, jazz drummer, he's on an interview with I believe Larry King, And like the guy asked him, was like, how important is the drummer? And he's like, oh, it's everything. It like if you like, like you can have the best guitar player, the best bass player, beautiful vocalist, everything. But if your drummer sucks, you might as well just get a different band. I'm like,
No.
damn. So it's like I like the responsibility that comes with it because you're keeping time and you are assisting the other instruments in delivering force.
I think what speaks to that too is like whenever we're writing or rehearsing, we spend like like most of our time practicing, recording, anything is drums. And we are delivering Gus a lot of feedback because we all realize what an important role he plays. So like it's where like we try to like really focus our energy towards. Because if Gus is holding it down and he's hitting all the moments we're trying to like do as a band, the entire song will be killer. Or like even if Dom or I mess up, if Gus is there, like it can save the whole song.
Yeah, it's you're the construction worker of the band.
I also just want to add, part of what I love about Gus's drumming is the fact that he's left-handed, but he's left-handed in the best way because he doesn't just switch the drum kit around like Dominic Howard from Muse does, right? Where he puts the hi-hat on the other side.
Yeah,
Now, Gus
I play open.
always plays with the same setup as any right-hand drummer. Yeah, but he plays like this. And he just looks like an absolute caveman. I swear, you just imagine clubs and he's just like, like it's my favorite thing. There are so many times when I'll be playing a set with him and I'll turn around and look at him on a song like Detox, and he's just like his entire body is moving, and it's just it brings me so much joy. I don't know what it is.
And I can jump on anyone's drum kit.
Yeah.
I don't have to switch it around. I can just jump right on and start playing.
Anybody else want to go with why they picked up their instrument?
Yeah. So funny enough, I actually growing up, I always loved music. I loved like the Fuse channel growing up, like watching music videos. And I really wanted to be a drummer for a long time. Because I don't know, it seemed really cool, and like I loved how the rhythm made me feel. But then my sister Karina ended up getting an acoustic guitar for Christmas one year, and she was learning how to play. And a few years later, she had kind of fallen off, and we still had the guitar in the house. And I don't know what came over me. I just kind of got really curious about it. Started picking it up, fiddling with it. She had a friend who was a very talented guitar player, and he taught me the basics. The first song I ever learned was Just Like Heaven by The Cure. And kind of learning how to play the bass line and the lead guitar line really gave me like a great lesson early on. And oh, this is how these two elements fit together. Like, this is why you need both. And I just didn't stop playing. Like I was maybe around 10 at that time. And I just, look up YouTube videos, like how to play like my favorite songs. I never had any like formal like music theory training. So for the most part, like my education was just other guitar players, YouTube videos, and just my own, fiddling, just figuring things out. And then, yeah, kind of similar to what Gus was saying, I think part of what really drew me to like Rage Against the Machine and Muse and kind of just riff-based rock music in general is it is kind of similar to what he was saying about how even if you don't have the music theory background, you can you can figure out what the notes are to that riff, by just playing along to it, especially if oh, this song's in drop D. So most of the open notes, every open note you hear is going to be the open D, right? So listening to like Rage songs, learning how to do that, listening to some of the heavier Muse stuff, just it really got me excited about I don't know, like what that can feel like to play like that. And also I love to watch like their live concert videos on YouTube, and you would just see the crowd go nuts, like because they all know when the riff's gonna come in, and even like to the point where you get like the crowd singing the riff because they know it that well, like a kind of like a Seven Nation Army situation. Like there is something just very again, like to use guys' word, like tribal about that kind of playing. So that is a big part of what inspired me to get into the kind of stuff that I do. Yeah, I love my effects pedals too. When I got into effects in high school, it like really opened a whole new realm of like playing because you could play the pedal and not just the guitar, you know? So I do a lot of that stuff on stage as well. Like I'll be messing with different parameters or trying to like really dial things in to get certain sound effects and whatnot. And it's just very fun, you know, it's a different way of using my brain. So that's what got me into guitar.
For me, like my love for music stems entirely from my dad. When I was in, I'll say like the fourth grade, my dad bought me a guitar and he started taking me to lessons because he was like he was old enough to be my grandpa. Like he died at 64. He was born in 1950. So he saw like the entirety of like just rock's development. Like he was there for it. He was a teenager in the 60s watching the Beatles kind of develop. You know, he was like really into like the 70s and like Deep Purple, Crosby, Stills and Nash, like all these like, just dad rock bands. He liked all the dad
Classic
bands,
rock.
classic rock radio shit. And he was my dad was disabled and he was morbidly obese. He really didn't get to do a lot of that stuff. So I think he lived vicariously through me and he really tried to get me into music so that I would live that life he didn't get to live. The like he like was the guy who like helped manage or book for his friends' bands, but he never really did much with it himself. But like at the time, just really wasn't feeling guitar. I think part of it was confidence and like desire to practice. Like I didn't have that role model growing up of someone who just like tries. If things had to come easily to me, otherwise I wouldn't want to do it. Um, and then for some reason, like there was like that moment, like where I was like that gifted kid in school, and now I'm in the 10th grade and I'm trying out all these AP classes, and finally that breaks. Things don't come easy to me anymore. I'm realizing that I have to work really fucking hard to keep up in school. But I'm also realizing while I'm in school that this is a complete waste of fucking time in a lot of aspects. Like I have the handful of classes each year that are like compelling and I'm just like engrossed in, like in English classes, history classes I really liked. When I finally got to take psychology, that ended up being like the nail in the coffin, and I ended up going to CSUN and getting my BA in psych. But like I also have classes like art history where I'd have to do these fucking flashcards that would take me like 3 hours to do. So it's like I'm not getting home until 3 o'clock. And then I'm spending 3 more hours just getting my art history homework done, not even my other homework. And there was a certain point where I just said, fuck this. And I remember, like, instead of doing my art history homework one day, I went to my dad's closet and I found his old acoustic guitars. And then there was an acoustic bass. And I don't know what came over me. It just started off as an impulse, like, how can I get away from doing my homework? Because I don't want to do my homework anymore. But it ended up being the best decision I ever made. I just kept learning online. Like there's so many YouTube videos, and bass has a really like it's really easy to get started on bass because it's like the 4 strings. Once you get your fretting hand down and you can get past that like the resistance of it, it's like not that hard. But then I started trying to learn like some of my favorite songs. Like I remember being really proud that I figured out Ratchet by Block Party, just like this really like bouncy dance beat and this like really cool chromatic bass line. And like I just wanted more. And then I think I started realizing that like what drives me is like I need to be like not the best. It's like no one's really the best, but like I got to be the best I can be. and it just pushed me to start taking lessons. I I just fell in love with the instrument. Like bass is my go-to now. I'll play other instruments. I've started picking up guitar again, but I think bass has that like I mean, just like the drums, it can be very percussive. It can also be really melodic, like a guitar. It's it's kind of everything in the same way because like I'm the one who has to make sure what the guitar is doing and what the drums are doing meet, and I also have to add something completely unique to give the song a feel that's like I mean whatever it needs, whether it just need I need to back up Dom with a chord and chug with him, or if like something needs to bounce, like that's kind of all in my control.
Yeah.
And I think over the years I've really liked that. Because I'm like a big music theory guy. Maybe not like the biggest. Like I just find a lot of inspiration.
More than any of us.
And there's so much utility. Like
Yeah,
it's so
very
much
helpful.
it's so much easier for me to say like, hey Dom, I have no idea what you can play, figure it out. If I can tell him what scale I'm playing, what chords I think would sound good. And I think bass gives me that ability to kind of like shape these songs together by being in the center of it, even if I'm not always at the forefront of the song.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tostada situation.
What? What the fuck are you talking about?
The drums are the hardened tortilla, the bass is the meat, the guitar is the salsa on top.
There you go. That's how you make it all come together, right?
It all has to be a band,
Love
tostada style. You know, there's layers to it.
That's an EP title right there. No, Tostada style.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay.
So you guys got the new single "False Divide" coming out on the 21st, basically this Thursday. For those of you that are watching, so talk to me about that. How did that single come about, and are you guys excited for everybody to finally listen to it?
Yeah. So that one kind of started in my room. It was just I don't honestly exactly remember where the riff came from. I think it was a COVID era thing. I played a lot of guitar in my bedroom during that lockdown, that initial one in California. And I had this riff floating around. It was just the riff, the primary like riff in the chorus that you'll hear for a long time. And then I ended up bringing it to the band, and we kind of I don't know we did our thing with it. We put it through the blender. And yeah, I just what I love about that one is that it's got this pre-chorus that I think has like a kind of a spooky element to it. Like there's a lot of like diminished notes in that one. And also I get to do some falsetto in like kind of a different way that I've done before on a lot of these singles. So I think it shows off some of our other sides. I also think in a way it's kind of a throwback to some of our earlier stuff. It's a lot more based around like a primary riff. It even has like a riff change in the last like 45 seconds of the song, which is something that we used to do a lot. And so in that way, it was kind of like a blast from the past. And yeah, I also lyrically like I was very inspired by some books and some documentaries I was watching at the time about like just how social media actually works. Like I was like, I'm a Gen Z person, right? So I got Instagram at like 12 and nobody knew what the hell it was or what it would become. And eventually, I started to look into like how the actual infrastructure of those websites works and what they're actually making money on, which is our data, right? And it's basically you are the product, right? It's cliche, but it's so true. If it's free, they're using you to sell to advertisers, basically, right? That's how it's free.
It's turned into a Cronenberg.
Yeah, kind of. So I lyrics speak to that. They speak to that idea. Kind of like there's some like parallels to like the robber baron era of like the Gilded Age, which was like late 1800s. That's when like oil really took off, and you have these oil tycoons. In a way, data has become the new oil, right? Because all the new billionaires are, they're based on their wealth is based on websites, right? Like whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos. So yeah, the lyrics speak to that. And I'm very excited for people to listen to it. I think it's going to be a kind of a cool palate cleanser off of our latest singles. Again, we're bouncing genres, so it's a different flavor. And yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool to get that
and
out.
every single that we do, we like to try a different direction too. Even if we are working with the same producer, we try to try a different like production direction or like songwriting direction, genre direction. Because it's just like, you know, we're steering our ship a lot of different ways. And you know, we're honing in on a path. But in order to do that, you got to try a lot of different stuff. And yeah, for like the drums on that track, like I definitely channeled as much John Bonham as I could.
Yeah.
Not that I'll ever be him, but I'm definitely inspired by him.
Maybe one day we can deep fake you.
Oh yeah.
Use
Yeah,
AI, right?
We have the technology.
Yeah, I do also want to note, this song is kind of special to me too, because it was the first song we played after like the COVID lockdowns. Like we played a show in 2021 in August at Transplants Brewing in Palmdale. And that was the first show we had played since the beginning of 2020, right? So since it was the first show after the initial pandemic. And that was another one of those moments where like we came in, we opened the show, and as soon as the riff dropped, it just worked. Like you could see in the crowd, like people were having fun. It was exciting. And I don't know, it kind of started like the new live show era. Offered like a really good memory. So I'm really excited to finally get this out there.
Yeah.
Also, it's probably going to be the last single for a while until the album gets finalized, and then the next stuff, hopefully, that you hear will be singles off that. So it's kind of like wrapping up, tying up some loose ends, and then everything else is going to be brand new. So,
do you guys have any shows to promote that are already set in stone so the audience can know to go check you guys out?
Yeah. We've got one confirmed, one kind of up in the air, so we're not going to talk about that right now. But we're going to play at the Lancaster Poppy Festival next Sunday, which is going to be April 23rd. Probably this Sunday for the people.
This Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be super fun. The Poppy Festival is like a very iconic Antelope Valley community celebration. It happens every year. And it's at the AV Fairgrounds this year. So it's like a much bigger venue. A lot of people should be there. And yeah, we're going to be competing against 14 other local bands.
It's a first annual Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
Wow, first annual. Okay. Maybe you guys win it then.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
I mean,
fingers
like
crossed.
there were like 50 bands that like applied, and we're part of the 15 that made it in. So I think that says something already. That's a small victory. And like, I'm just excited.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, personally, like, I don't understand the idea of Battle of the Bands, to be honest. I don't know how you compete with art.
It's just judges probably going to be judging you guys because I was a judge once.
But
so
like,
we're
we're just gonna do our thing, and the people hopefully fuck with it, because then we can go on. I think the prize is then we get to play the AV fair, which is much bigger. And so like, yeah, hopefully good comes from it. I think it'll just be a fun show regardless, and hope a lot of other talented bands that'll be fun to see.
All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It was great talking to you guys.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody.